Hey guys, and welcome to the 52nd episode of EduAllStars, the second in our marathon of episodes tonight. My name is Todd Nesloni. You can find me on Twitter at TechNinjaTodd.
My name is Chris Kessler. You can find me on Twitter at IamKessler. We're missing Keegan tonight in our marathon because he actually graduated high school today. So congrats to Keegan Wade for making it all, 12 years of primary school, and he's moving on to college at some point in his life. I don't even know if that's next year. Is that? I don't even know. We'll talk.
Yeah,
to talk to him about that.
He's starting at some college in Michigan in the fall.
Okay, cool. Good for him. So, welcome back to the podcast, and we really appreciate all the great responses. Hopefully you're listening live in the marathon evening that we've got going, but if not, you're probably hearing this in mid-June, and appreciate all the responses on iTunes or feedback that you've left on iTunes and responses that you've given on the blog. Those always help out.
And we'd like to thank Remind 101 for sponsoring this marathon of EduAllStars episodes. They're a really great resource for texting parents and students without never needing their phone number, and they never need yours. It's a free service, and you can learn a lot more about them on remind101.com or on our website at eduallstars.com.
And then also, if you're listening live tonight, it's great if you would tweet using the EduAllStars hashtag, and that's with no hyphens or no spaces. It's great to follow that along, and everyone can have kind of a back-channel chat while we're talking live.
And so our guest this week is Ryan McLane, who is an innovative principal at Big Walnut Intermediate School in Ohio. So thank you, Ryan, for being with us tonight.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Excited to be here for the round 2 of your marathon tonight.
Well, I guess the best way for us to start, Ryan, is to just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in education.
Well, I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and my dad, he just retired last year. He was in the classroom for, I think, 42 or 43 years. He taught high school math and science, and I can always remember as a kid him coming home irritated and frustrated, and he always said, do not get into education, do not become a teacher. And that's probably one of the few times growing up I actually listened to my parents. Went to college, really had no aspirations of becoming a teacher at all. Actually had a great teacher in high school, my Spanish teacher, who got me kind of hooked on stocks. So I thought I was going to be a stockbroker or an accountant, and that's what I started out at. Made it through first semester sophomore year in accounting, and I can still remember it was intermediate accounting, and we were doing this fictitious problem of a factory, and they had a warehouse in Texas, and part of it was hit by a tornado. So we had to do the accounting for it, figure out the depreciation of materials and all kinds of stuff, and I snapped. I said to myself, if I've got to do this for the rest of my life, the rest of my life is not going to be very long. So I can remember at the end of the semester going up to the professor, thanking him for everything, but that I was changing majors. And he jokingly said, "What are you going into education?" And I said, "Yes, I am." So I got my secondary education certification in business, picked up history as well, and graduated and got into teaching. I taught high school business and social studies for 12 years at 2 different school districts, and then got into administration about 3 years ago.
So how did you? I'm kind of at the midway point in my master's degree for administration, and how did you know you were ready to get into administration? Like how did you know you were kind of ready to get out of the classroom?
Well, I don't know that I was ready to get out of the classroom, but I was a high school wrestling coach for quite some time, and when my wife and we had our second daughter, I knew that their future in wrestling wasn't going to happen, so I was looking to get out of coaching because to stay in it was being selfish. So I had some administrators kind of push me in the direction of at least getting my principal's license. So I did that, but really had no intention or plan of, okay, this is going to be my last year teaching, and then I'm getting into administration. Kind of just get it to have it, and kind of stumbled in to my first principal job when really I wasn't expecting to leave the classroom.
So now that you've been an administrator for a few years, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned being an administrator that may be different than being a classroom teacher?
I think the biggest, and I probably learned it this year more than any, being in a bigger school. When I was at Utica Junior High, we had about 250 students. I can't think of how many staff members, maybe about 13 or 14. And then moving to Big Walnut, doubled in size, so over 500 students, about 31 teachers, and the hardest lesson was that I can't be a teacher anymore. I can't get my hands in every single thing, and I don't want to say micromanaging, but I couldn't have maybe as many of the interactions with kids that I did as a teacher in a teaching capacity.
So Ryan, you're a connected educator. You're on Twitter. We have actually had conversations back and forth, prior to this interview. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and like how you got started with that?
Well, I had a Twitter account, maybe about 4 years ago when I was coaching wrestling, and it was basically just to send out updates of how we were doing at tournaments. Because when you're a wrestler, those tournaments last 12 hours, and most teachers or kids aren't going to come out and watch a tournament. But they might check out a tweet to say, hey, we're in third place, or we just won a tournament, or realistically, hey parents, the bus will be back at school in 30 minutes, so you can pick up your kids. But I didn't start using it, I guess, professionally to learn until about a year and a half ago. And it's kind of funny. My wife, she was on a business trip to China, it was me and our 2 daughters, and it was a Sunday night, and for whatever reason, I wore them out, and they were asleep by 7:30. So I was like, you know what? I want to figure this Twitter thing out because I've heard about it, and really the only person I ever followed was Shenager, and just watching what he was doing. But I'd never tweeted really or anything professionally. So I got on a Twitter chat. It was EdChatRI, Rhode Island State Twitter chat. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm just going to check things out. I'm not going to tweet. I just want to see what this is all about. And that lasted about maybe 6 or 7 minutes. And then I tweeted something out and then got a response. And it was actually principal in Rhode Island, Dan Kelly. And he was giving me some information going back and forth. And turns out he was the state principal of the year. And to make a long story short, he gave me his phone number. He sent me a message and said, hey, Ryan, give me a call so I can talk to you more about this. So here I am the next day. I call him, and he spends 15 minutes talking to me. I think we were talking about standards-based grading or something. And I was hooked from that point on. I'm thinking, here's the state principal of the year giving up 15 minutes of his time to help me out. And it didn't cost me anything. I've been hooked on Twitter ever since.
That's awesome. And now you also blog quite a bit. Have you always been a writer?
No, not really. It was kind of one of those, I felt like I was getting so much from different educators that I wanted to share, the things that we were doing, our teachers were doing, our kids were doing. Kind of, if one person got something out of it, great. That was kind of my way to give back. I try to not be too controversial or get on any rants. I try to keep it positive and hey, here's what we're doing. And I've gotten a lot of great ideas, and that just extends the conversation to make everyone better.
So one of the things that, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead. I was going to ask the next one, so that's fine.
I know I had it labeled weird. It's my fault. So I know that as an administrator, one of your jobs is to really build a strong sense of family community on your campus. How do you work to build that within your staff?
I think you've got to. It's no different than getting to know your kids in the classroom. You've got to take the time to get to know your staff. And I'll be honest, I could do a better job on that. I'd be lying if I said, I've built a great relationship with all 31 of my teachers, but I'm working on it. You've got to get to know them. What are their interests outside of the classroom, not just, hey, you're a teacher and it's all about teaching. That's the first step, and then to let them know and trust that you really don't have an agenda. That how can I make your job easier? What can I do to help you be a better teacher and be a resource, not, hey, I'm here to try and get you, or I caught you, or stuff like that.
One of the things I have kind of a personal interest in is this, and I know that every campus has this issue, I guess, where are teachers that maybe kind of lock themselves in their room and maybe they kind of do their own thing, or maybe they're actually negative to a point where it's detrimental to a staff and it kind of spills outside the room. How do you handle that if you see an issue like that? And what, a future administrator, how am I supposed to handle a teacher that's been there 20 years and is just ingrained and set in their ways?
You've got to just keep chipping away. I want to say it was from one of Todd Whitaker's books. You can't make decisions based on the negative people, or you can't make decisions to try to please them, because then you're going to lose the people that are doing a great job. So I try to do that, but I don't have a sense of, well, that person's set in their ways and they're never going to change. You just have to chip away at it. And a great example, and not that this teacher is negative by any means, but introducing Twitter to our staff. And I would say at the beginning of the year, the vast majority of our staff didn't have Twitter, didn't know what it was, and one of our veteran teachers kind of laughed at me in a joking way, not like, no, I'm not going to do this, but saw no use or no purpose in Twitter. Now I've created a monster. She's participating in Twitter chats. She's coming to me saying, hey, I found this resource, and those are the things that you just can't give up at the first sign of resistance. You're not going to convert everyone overnight, but you can't give up on people.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I have been dying to hear this story. I've talked to you a little bit on Twitter. I've read your blog, but I wanted to hear it come out of your mouth. I want to hear about Teach Like a Pirate Day. Now, we had Dave Burgess on our show, one of our first episodes. Friend of ours. We love him. His book is incredible. But you have taken the idea and the message behind Teach Like a Pirate and done it on an entire campus scale for a full day. You did it with a junior high or high school last year and an intermediate school this year. Can you tell our listeners kind of how you got the idea and the path that it took to take place?
Well, I never heard of Dave Burgess until Twitter, so once again, thank goodness that I got on Twitter. Started hearing about this guy, and so I think over Christmas break, about a year and a half ago, I downloaded the book on my Kindle app, and I read it in a day, and I drank the Kool-Aid. I immediately became a Dave Burgess Teach Like a Pirate disciple. So started talking to my staff about it. Most of them had never read the book. I didn't order the book for them, but just talking about the philosophies and all of that stuff. And we got through testing. When I was at Utica Junior High, it was a 7th and 8th grade building. Our test scores were just in the tubes. We were last in the county, like across the board. So unfortunately, our focus was on improving learning so that we would do better on that test. So the state testing in Ohio wraps up the last week of April, and it's kind of, we've got a month left of school, and what do we do? So I decided on my own, and fortunately, I've been really lucky. I had an awesome staff at Utica. I have an awesome staff now at Big Walnut. So I kind of threw it out at them at Utica and said, hey, look, we're going to do Teach Like a Pirate Day. The essential question in that book is, if kids didn't have to be there, would you be teaching to an empty room? And we're going to find out. So I gave them like 3 weeks notice, and they had time. We had professional developed time on Wednesday mornings, so they had those Wednesdays to start working on it, and basically sold it to them that this is going to be the most fantastic thing ever. And Dave Burgess, of course, when he heard about it, he was excited. But privately, he was like, are you out of your mind? I didn't really think about it. I mean, yeah, I guess I was out of my mind, but my staff was on board, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. So our teachers created these experiences, and it had to be in their content area, but it could be whatever they wanted. And then we compiled this guidebook, and then the day before, we handed it out to the kids and said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go to homeroom for attendance, and the bell's going to ring, and you're going to get to do whatever you want. You just can't go to the same teacher more than once. So the bell rings, and they're kind of walking the halls, kind of really not knowing what to expect. But then, a lot of people were going to, I think one of the most popular ones that year was science experiments. So kids got there, and it was closed already because the teacher had 40 kids in his room already. So then they had to go and find their second or third choice. So when that period ended, the bell rang, kids were sprinting to class because they wanted to get there. And that's what I'll never forget is second to last week of school, and kids were running to class. Nothing was graded. Nothing was for points. Kids could go wherever they want. I had 0 discipline issues. Our attendance rate was like 99%, and it was phenomenal. So when I ended up changing districts, I told my staff from day one, hey, we did this at Utica, and we are going to do it here at Big Walnut. And you've got all year to think about it, but we will be doing this. And prior to doing it at Utica, only one teacher had read the book. I would say probably 2/3 of my staff at BWI had read the book prior to us doing it. And same results. And I was nervous because I was thinking, man, I've hyped this up, and it was such a great experience at Utica. I hope this doesn't turn into a disaster. And same thing, kids sprinting in the halls. And that was the worst thing, is that kids were legitimately running into each other because they're trying to get to the next class. But here I am thinking, we're in May and kids are running to school. We had a couple parents come in to pick up their kids for a doctor's appointment or something, and the kids said, I'm not leaving. Reschedule the appointment, but I'm not leaving. And it's like that's what education has to be about. I mean, people want to talk about testing and Common Core and all the standards-based grading, regular. If kids don't want to be there, it doesn't matter. If kids want to be there and we make school fun and they're learning, the sky's the limit in education.
So how did you sell it to your teachers? Can you walk me through the process of how you told them at Big Walnut this is what your vision was, this is how it was going to happen? Walk us through that.
Well, so we created a couple videos. We had a movie trailer that we had on YouTube prior to Teach Like a Pirate Day, and then I had a video or another video of some pictures from afterwards, and a couple of the local newspaper articles. So my opening day, the first day I met my staff, I played those videos and explained to them, look, this is what kids want. If you're a teacher, that's what you want too. I mean, you want kids running to your class. I can't think of a better feeling as a teacher than to see kids running to my class. Yeah. So, and then once again, just building those relationships, getting people to trust that, you're not, the point of this was not to find out whose class no one would show up to. That wasn't the point of this at all. This was, let's make sure everyone's successful so that you can see and have faith in your teaching that, hey, kids will come to my class, and then see that kids will come to your class even if they don't have to. So it was a win-win. It was a win for the kids. It was a win for the teachers. But really, from day one, I just showed them and talked it up and talked it up all throughout the year.
So what are some of the things that the teachers came up with of what they did with the students?
We had a teacher do shark dissections. We had a couple teachers recreate Shark Tank. We had a math teacher put the kids on a QR code scavenger hunt. We had another set of math teachers do like the Amazing Race, where they would have to go all throughout our campus finding clues. It was all educationally related, like, okay, here's a bicycle tire, and you've got to figure out the circumference or something like that. And then once you do it, you'll get your next clue. I did a couple. I did Mystery Skype. I did 3 of those. I was supposed to do 4, but Todd had to back out on me
No, Todd.
Sorry.
But
Oh man.
and that's a funny story. Todd, can I tell that story, Todd?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Todd, the week before, I think this is like Monday, and I'm connect. Here's why Twitter's awesome. I tweeted out, "Hey, need a couple mystery Skype people for Teach Like a Pirate Day," and within 10 minutes, I had 4 responses. And we had a school from Michigan, a school from California, and a school from Germany, and Todd in Texas. So the Monday before, I reach out to everyone, "Hey, want to do a test Skype or Google Hangout just to make sure we don't have any glitches." And Todd says, "Hey, I might have a little bit of a problem because I've got training for my new principal job." But he says, "But don't worry about it. I'm going to get out of it so I can do your Teach Like a Pirate Day Skype." And I'm thinking to myself, oh, Todd doesn't know what's going on. So I knew right then and there. And a couple days later, he sent me a message and was like, "Man, I feel so bad, but they're not letting me get out of this principal training." And I was like, "Todd, I knew 2 days ago you weren't getting out of this training." So no, it was great. I had a ton of kids in the library doing mystery Skype. So we had great stuff. I think we had something like 26 different experiences. And that was one of the kids' major complaints was they can only do 5 of them because we have 5 periods. "You mean I can only pick 5 of these?" So they were like, "Let's do Teach Like a Pirate week next year so we can get to more than just 5. And I don't think my teachers are too gung-ho about that, but
Nah, a little too much.
it was good.
But,
So,
that's incredible, the amount of excitement that builds within the kids and that you can build within the teachers, and it just makes learning fun, which is what it should be. I mean, I've read about it both years, and I just think, God, I wish I could be there that day to experience it.
It was really good for everyone, kids, our teachers, even our parents and community. Dave Burgess had me host the TLAP chat, I think, last Monday. And we had teachers participating, we had parents participating, we even had a school board member chime in with a couple tweets, and that's what was great is, the parents are excited about school, and you hear so much negativity about public schools and the perception of public schools, so to create a culture where we're trying to be positive, and that's not to say that people aren't saying bad things about our school, or people are saying bad things about me, that you're going to have that. But I think we've got a lot of positive things going on, and it's really because we've got great kids, we've got great teachers, and I've got great administration. My superintendent, assistant superintendent, and our school board, they embrace this. I said, "Hey, I want to do this," and they're like, "If it's good for kids, let's do it." So I'm very lucky, and I had the same situation at Utica where I had a superintendent let me do some crazy stuff and a school board that supported that, so I've been lucky.
I just want to hit a couple of logistic follow-up questions because I think this is a cool topic we've never talked about before. Okay, so could the kids go to teachers they didn't have? Could they go to a 6th grade teacher, an 8th grade teacher, or whatever? Okay.
Yeah, so fifth graders could go to 6th grader classes and vice versa. They couldn't go to the same class more than once because we didn't want to, prevent other kids from experiencing that. And I left it up to the teachers, if they were going to exceed their class limit. I said, you've got to at least let 30 kids in the room, but if you want to do more, you can do more. I think for one of the mystery Skypes, we had 100 kids in the library. I know the shark dissection had, maybe 50 or 60 kids out there. So it's one of those, I'm not going to force that on the staff. But if they want to exceed the limits, by all means, exceed the limits.
Okay. Did you let teachers team up then and do like a double class?
Yeah, we had a few that teamed up. The Shark Tank had a couple teachers that formed that, and they had guests as the sharks. So it wasn't just the teachers who were the sharks. There were some community members, some actual local business owners that came in, and kids pitched their idea, and it was kind of part of an ongoing project in that class.
Okay, so that was a part of the kids weren't just coming up with ideas that particular day. This is something they were doing
for that one. I don't think so. No.
Okay, cool. And
how long were each sessions?
Our classes are 55 minutes long, so we kept the normal bell schedule where we have 5 periods plus lunch and recess. So teachers still got their prep period off, and we had some in the past that voluntarily gave that up. But it wasn't fair for me to say, hey, you're going to teach on your prep period.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Or possibly legal. So.
Oh yeah, that too.
Okay, the last question I have. This is probably kind of a negative one, but like, were there teachers that the kids didn't want to go to, like they ended up with like 3 or 4 kids, and were they able to reflect like, oh, maybe my class sucks? I don't know.
This year, no, and that was great, and I don't want to. It wasn't surprising. What was surprising was a year ago at Utica, I did have 2 teachers that for one period, no one showed up, and their class normally doesn't suck, and they weren't bad teachers, but I think if you were to compare, and they would probably be the first to admit this, but if you were to compare their experience in the description to everyone else's, they weren't surprised that no one showed up for a period, but it wasn't an all-day thing. So fortunately, the answer to Burgess's question was a positive. Yes, kids would come to your room.
That's awesome. That's totally cool.
I love that. I mean, it's just such a cool social experiment to try out, and my brain is already racing with how I can get it to work on my intermediate campus next year.
Yeah, if you don't do that, you're a loser. I mean, that's all there is to
it. Todd, what grades is your building?
5th and 6th.
Okay, so that's what my building was.
I mean, I'm sorry. Clearly, I don't even know my own building. 4th and 5th.
Oh, 4th and 5th. So the big difference between my building now and last year, I've got 5th and 6th graders, was the running in the halls, and that's it became close to being a safety issue. Yeah. So that was the consistent feedback from teachers and even kids. Hey, we've got to fix this for next year. So we're looking into how we're going to do that, but it was an awesome thing to see. And we had educators from around the state that came and visited because they had read about it last year and heard about it from Twitter. So we had people come and visit and check it out because they want to bring it back to their school, or a version of it to their school.
Okay, so if someone were to describe you in 3 words, what are 3 words you would hope they would use?
I think it would be competitive, fun, and accountable. I want to win in anything I do, whether I'm playing checkers with my daughters or just our school. I want BWI to be the best intermediate school in the country. I want like the Ron Clark Academy. I'm jealous of you, Todd, that you've got to make that pilgrimage, and that's something I want to do. But I would like something like that where people are coming to see, hey, what are they doing? That's so great. Obviously, I like to have fun. I think it's so critical that kids need to learn and they need to have fun, and it's an and, it's not an or. We can't just be pounding information in their head, making them miserable, and expect to have positive results. And on the flip side, we can't just be having fun and playing games and no learning going on. I think you can do both. And then accountability, I think that comes from my days as a field goal kicker. Whether I missed a kick and it was bad snap or a bad hold, I couldn't blame anyone else, and the coach would say, what happened? And I missed a lot of field goals, so I got that question a lot, what happened? But it wasn't, I can't blame the holder, and I'm going to trust my holder that he's going to be accountable and say, hey, coach, it was a bad hold, because he knew I was going to kick his finger the next time if he threw me under the bus.
That's awesome. So, Chris, you want to take the next one too?
Sure. What do we got here? Looking back 5 or 10 years, what's a piece of advice you'd like to give yourself, your former self?
My former self: invent Twitter. That's the advice I would give myself.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good.
No, get connected earlier. It's just I noticed it attending the state conference this year, the Ohio School Boards Convention, and we have a state technology convention. And in years past, I would attend that thing, and I wouldn't know anyone, and I wouldn't talk to anyone. I would go to sessions, and that would be it. Now I'm meeting up with superintendents, curriculum directors, other principals, and just I've learned so much, and I'm learning probably more at those conferences between sessions, talking to those people, than I am from the actual sessions themselves. So that's the advice I would give myself 5 years ago: is get connected and start meeting some people to learn.
So, what is a good book or a blog that you've been reading lately that you would recommend? Obviously, Teach Like a Pirate would be one, but if you had to recommend a different book or blog or a blog post to our listeners, what would you recommend?
You know, I don't follow any blogs religiously. I read them. You know, I'll click on a link on Twitter, but I don't follow any, or I don't have any that, you know, I'm going to read this every single week. Book-wise, you know, obviously Teach Like a Pirate, but any of Ron Clark's books are great. I like for administrators. I love Todd Whitaker's stuff. Malcolm Gladwell, I'm a fan of his work. A book that I'm getting ready to read, actually one of our high school teachers in the district that I work at, his name's James Sturdivant. He just wrote a book. It's called You've Got to Connect. And it's I think it's about building relationships and how important that is. So that's on my summer reading list.
Awesome. And Ryan, what's one of the last things we always ask our guests is just kind of what's something in either education or even outside of education that you're just really passionate about right now?
Well, outside of family and golf, I'll keep it professional because no one wants to hear that how much I love my wife and kids. Although I do love my wife and kids. I'm passionate about making school fun. I've got a giant ampersand in the background of my Twitter picture, and that's just to remind me and people of that end that, you know, we've got to make sure kids learn and they have fun doing it. And I think if you don't do that, you're taking the easy way out, and we're not going to fix public education if kids don't want to be there. And I think we can make kids not hate school much later than we do right now.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that's pretty cool, speaking of Twitter, Todd Whitaker just retweeted our book recommendation of his books. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, Ryan, thanks for joining us tonight, man. It was awesome to get to finally talk with you. Like Todd told you before the show, you've been on our list for the longest time, and we finally got to connect, and it's just totally awesome. The whole Teach Like a Pirate Day is just phenomenal. I've got to sell this to my new school this year.
I'm telling you, my mind is like racing right now. My mind's blown seeing you do it on one campus last year.
Yeah.
But hearing the story of you doing it on a totally different campus this year and still having this great success, I'm like, God, there's no way I could say I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's I got to talk to Dave Burgess again, and that was one of the things that I think he was most excited about, was that it did happen at two different schools. So it's almost like there's no reason you can't do this. And the one advice that I would say is you've got to have a great relationship with your staff, because if they're not buying in, it's a disaster waiting to happen. But as I said, at Utica I had a great staff, and at Big Walnut I've got great people, and they're there for the kids, and they're willing to try some crazy stuff. So, you know, you can do it too.
Awesome. Ways to connect with us. You can find us on Twitter, EduAllStarsHQ. You can search out EduAllStars hashtag, also EduAllStars.com. Search out EduAllStars on iTunes. Anywhere in Google, you'll find us, EduAllStars.
And we would like to let you know that we're going to continue this marathon that we're on. If you are watching live, we've got another interview coming up in 30 minutes at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time with Andrea Keller. And then at 9:45, we've got the co-founder of the Ron Clark Academy, Kim Bearden, coming on tonight. And if you're listening with us, then we will release these episodes weeks apart.
Yeah.
Because we're taking the month of June off, hence our marathon tonight. But thank you for listening. We'd also like to thank Remind 101 for sponsoring this marathon of episodes, and of course Ryan for coming on with us tonight again. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. You guys do an awesome job.
Thanks.